Hello to my human family. I have to now do with the professional version. I have to check that I'm actually recording because I've done half an interview without recording anything um, before, which is the way things are going lately. Or it may be just cabin fever. I don't know. But for the second time, I have Sophia Botha on. The infamous, the famous, the scandalous Rage of Botha. Uh, we didn't. We got into a lot of politics before. We're also doing a show on her channel, which is specifically politics and the bullshit going on in the world. And But we haven't really talked. We have not talked much about how she came up in politics. So the last time, because we just got into a political discussion, and that was that's what our show is now. The, uh, the since So first of all, hello again. We've been
Hello.
talking for an hour, so saying hello seems superfluous at this point. um, so since you've last since we last did the recording, you've gotten engaged,
I
which
have.
yes, not, and um,
I actually got engaged on YouTube.
yeah, you say about that because it is actually a funny story. I like this story.
Well, my now fiance is a YouTuber, Kim Justice. Please go and check out her channel. She makes videos about retro gaming, and she occasionally streams playing retro games. And she was doing a stream on New Year's Eve into New Year's Day, and as soon as um, 2020 was ushered in, I proposed to her, and she said yes.
And she knows what she's getting into, right? Just check. You sure?
Yeah.
No, I'm happy for you. I really am. I adore you. Uh,
Ah, thank you.
um, though I adore you, can you turn up a little bit? You're all of a sudden very quiet.
Am I?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't know why. Um,
or maybe I'm just louder.
yeah, I think you're just louder. I haven't changed anything. Um, can you still hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you fine. I'll push mine away, and that'll just even it out a little bit.
Okay.
Um, the What we wanted to we discussed before, and I specifically didn't ask beforehand any of the details. So I do want to find out how you came up into politics. What got you started being the the leftist radical you are?
Being a white Afrikaner, it's as simple as that. There's a generation now who've grown up who won't remember apartheid, which
It's
is
true.
a good and bad thing. I think that sometimes we need to remember the awful mistakes we've made in history. But then again, we need to say that was the past. We are now doing better. Essentially, I came to live in this country when I was full time when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And when I lived in South Africa, you never heard the word apartheid. Um, Occasionally, I heard people when they talked about politics, refer to it as our system. When I got to this country, I heard a lot of adults saying, "Oh, I wouldn't visit South Africa because of apartheid," and that was the first time I heard the word. And I started to learn about apartheid, um, and I suddenly remembered when I lived in South Africa. There was one time, um, my uncle Laurie was going to take me swimming. And we lived in a really big house. In fact, it was a compound right on the beach. There was just the railway tracks. Oh, sorry, I meant railroad tracks in between the house and the beach. And um, we had a black gardener, and we didn't seem to do a lot of work. But the black gardener would be out there, and in the heat. And in South Africa, it does get very hot.
I would imagine.
And as I said, my uncle Laurie wanted to take me swimming. So he said, well, I want to drop the gardener off where he lives. And we had a pickup truck. God, this is sounding ever more like the deep south, isn't it? And we were sitting up in the cabin, and the black gardener was out on the back of the truck. And we got to his village, and it was literally mud huts. Now, I was 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
And even at that age, I was starting to think there's something not quite right here. They're all living in fairly squalid conditions, yet we live in a really nice house. He works all fucking day. We do shit. So it was apartheid which really sort of politicized me, because it doesn't make sense to discriminate against someone based on the color of their skin. It really, maybe it's because I'm autistic. I just don't get it. I think it's wrong. However, my first, I was actually talking to someone about this last night. My first political sort of activism was, there was a girl at school who was a wheelchair user, and she went into the local town to buy a pair of shoes, and the people in the shoe shop asked her to leave because her wheelchair was scuffing the carpets, sorry. And well, the following weekend, we all went and did a sit-in in protest at this disableist, discrimination. She got an apology and several free pairs of shoes. So I would consider that a success. And they said they would never do any of that again. I don't know if that ever. I would imagine there are being disabled people discriminated against. In fact, I know there have been in shops and wherever else since. And it still goes on this day, even though we have legislation against it.
Yeah.
And that sort of was my political awakening. I used to bunk off school and used to join there was a vigil outside South African House here, which was the South African embassy, against apartheid. We've just had the 30th anniversary of the poll tax riots, which happened at the end of March 1990. I was there.
I don't know what the poll tax riots are.
Right.
So.
Well, it was the end of Thatcher.
Yeah.
I mean, she was she was on the slide anyways. But that was the impetus.
I remember what they are now, but please, since I asked, and other people might not know.
Well, the poll tax was a very unjust tax, which basically hit the poorest in society more than it hit the richest, which is typical of fucking Tories. And so there was a march against it. It was a really big mass march, which turned into a riot in 1990. And in some ways it was sort of, I'm trying to think. Well, there was actually, no, it wasn't the last time it actually changed. There was a demonstration which changed government policy, but
yeah,
it kind of was the beginning of the end for Margaret Thatcher. So you could say that really helped to bring her down. I know some people say no, it wasn't. There had already been a challenge to her leadership a few months before and whatever else. Well, it was part of that. And that was sort of my political awakening. And as I just got older, I just got more and more political. I used to remember the last school I was at, on when you go to sort of private schools, sometimes private schools have school on a Saturday morning, right?
Okay.
now it's not like proper lessons, but it is still counted as school. It's so that basically we could have longer holidays, right? That was one of the reasons given. Okay.
Okay.
One of the lessons we were due to have was basically was government and politics, right? I was the only kid in that class who was actually interested in learning any shit, right? The teacher didn't really want to teach politics and government. Well, this stuff is useful for people to understand. I mean, the amount of fucking people I know fuck all, because the teachers aren't willing to teach them. I mean, funny enough, the previous school, when I started my GCSE English, believe it or not, I was the only kid in that fucking class who had actually read a fucking book.
Mm.
This was. I have to say, actually, at school, I mean, I didn't. I actually left originally without any qualifications because I switched off because the teachers were just not teaching me anything I wanted to fucking learn. Essentially, I don't know that a lot of kids give that excuse. They say, "Oh yeah, I don't want to go to school because they're not teaching us anything." No, truly, it was. I wanted to learn stuff, just not what they were teaching me. Right.
Right.
They wanted us to read. When you do English exams here, you have to read set books, and you get a choice of books. Now, obviously, the choice of books I'm going to go for are people like Orwell, right?
Well, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
I'd already read 1984. I'd read it when I was 11 years old.
Well, let me
Right?
say, yeah, Vonnegut and Orwell and all the socialists. Those were already in my inventory when they came up in class. I'm like, all right, well, I can kind of
But
fuck
there
off
were,
for this semester, fuck off my brain for this semester.
yeah, there were other stuff going on. I mean, for instance, around this time, around sort of 1991, I got introduced to punk rock. This had been coming, and punk rock is a very big influence on me. The whole attitude. I just loved, the whole fuck you. You don't have to, study at the Royal Conservatory to be a fucking, musician. Just do it. As the Pink Fairy song.
Well, this is the famous sign outside of McLaren shop, which is here's one chord, here's the second chord, here's a third chord. Now start a band.
No, that wasn't at my Karen's shop. So you've got punk wrong.
I've got
No,
punk wrong. I'm sorry.
no,
I'm a goth. I'm a goth punk. I may not look like it anymore, but I'll let you.
no, that was actually in Sniffing Glue, the fanzine. They said, "Here's one chord, here's another. Now go and form a band." Yeah,
yeah.
that was in Sniffing. That was in the fanzine, but Sniffing Glue. Funny enough, I remember when I was about 14, and this is in the early days of MTV Europe, and my school actually had it. And me and a school friend, Laurie, we suddenly saw this very black and white video. So, it was black and white. Why do I say shit? It was a black and white, very black and white. Well, it was black and white, Anyways, actually, was it? Some people are going to say it wasn't actually black and white, but anyways, it had a sort of very dark sepia tone to it. It was four long-haired blokes, hairy and sweaty and angry, playing very aggressive music in a warehouse. Yeah. And have a guess what band that was?
Clash?
No, it was Metallica. The One video.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Oh, that thing.
That's
been a while. That's back when they were actually of the people.
Yeah, well, basically, for those who might not understand this, back in the 80s, the only sort of like aggressive music or semi-aggressive music you heard was fucking hair metal. And you might think I like blokes wearing makeup and, wearing lace and whatever else. No, not really. Plus, also the music was utter shite.
Well, I saw the New York Dolls, so
yeah, no. The original crop, Slade, T-Rex, the New York Dolls, they were cool, right? But
Yeah.
this was all about hedonism, about the Sunset Strip, and it was rather misogynistic, and I just hated it. It was like sing along heavy metal karaoke, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
just
pretty much.
yeah, I hated it. I wanted something which was a bit more aggressive, which was actually saying something, right? That's what I was looking for. So it was Metallica, right? And all right, the one is a great song.
Yeah.
I did buy Injustice for All. Um, where's Jason Newsted's bass? Yeah, everyone talks about the mix on that album being absolutely shit.
It's the remix is not much better, but
Yeah.
not that I know anything about music.
Actually, go and check out Jason Newsted's take on that. It's interesting. But anyways, um,
Yeah.
that sort of introduced me to really aggressive music, and I just got really into really aggressive music because I was a very angry, teenager, and you know, I needed that sort of attitude. But
It's okay to ask how old you are, right?
yeah, I'm 46.
46. Okay, because I'm 55, and so I'm OP. I'm from the original wave of punk.
Well, we're both Generation X.
That's true. That's true, and I like Generation X. Don't tell my cool friends. Uh,
Yeah, that's when Billy Idol was cool. Eyes without a face. Fuck off.
I liked Cyberpunk. Don't tell
Oh no,
me.
no, oh no, you didn't.
I
Oh
did.
god,
I did.
oh god. That's the second embarrassing thing you've told me you like today.
There are a lot of things I like just for its kitsch factor. 78, I guess it was my friend's father took me to a screening of a movie I've never been able to find again or know what it's called or anything like that. And the first time I heard the Talking Heads, it was the first time I heard Lena Lovitch. It was they were in there. A version of it later became was done as the Contra Erga Music War, but it's not that. So,
Right.
and
Now,
and Klaus fucking know me because Klaus fucking know me was fucking rock.
as I was saying, so
Sorry.
I got into really aggressive music, but the problem I always had with this aggressive music, and I remember Fat Mike from
No effects.
No Effects said, but basically, yeah, this music was good, but it was all, the lyrics are always about demons and dragons and wizards and shit. They weren't talking about stuff which, related to us, right?
Right.
Which was the problem. And I mean, these are the days before you had the internet, right? I mean, people don't know how fucking lucky they are now. You can just type in, hardcore bands and, a whole list will come up for you. Check out, right? In those days, we didn't have that access, right?
Right.
So,
thankfully I had friends who I got in. We had a great punk club here that let in underage. It's closed now, so they're not going to get in trouble. But it was also and so I got to see a lot of the enemies and I unfortunately when I saw the Clash I saw the Clash with the Who, so
yeah.
So stadium when they were doing stadium stuff.
So around about, I don't know, September, October 1991, there was a house parent at the last. See, this is the thing is I went to some. I ended up going to very posh schools, and there was a house parent there called Paul who was from Newcastle. If anyone's tell you about people from Newcastle here, Geordie accents are the hardest British dialect to understand. They fucking well is. Anyways, he
I watched 8 Years of Lewis just to say the third stupidest thing I
Why
could
I
say.
won? Why I won? I mean, they've got the words for stuff, which for instance, they refer to cigarettes as tabs. I mean, what? And they call girls gadgets.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, so he said to me, "Oh, you got to listen to this, and you got a CD out." He said, "Play this." So I put the CD in, and it was Nirvana's Nevermind. It was Nevermind, and well, it's hard for people to sort of grasp this. How do I say this? That album changed my life, but it also changed music overnight. Bye bye hair metal, fuck off. You were shit. That was the antidote to all that bullshit.
We were in a car on our way to there was an amusement park that had just closed, and we were gonna go and see if we could break in Canada when we heard it, and which is a punk thing to do already, going to another country to see if you could break into a defunct amusement park. But it came on the radio, and I was with my bandmate at the time, and the first thing she said to me was, "This is what we've been trying to do." I said, "Yep," and nobody's been getting what we're trying to do. And goddamn it, Nirvana was like, and we came this close to taking the car and just going to Seattle.
Yeah. People, you see, that's it. People just don't understand that was, the moment for my generation. Yeah, and obviously Nevermind was named Nevermind in homage to, a certain other album called Nevermind the Bollocks.
Yeah, of course.
And of course that introduced, I know people say, well, Nirvana were grunge, they weren't punk. Punk heavily influenced grunge. And this is, that's obvious, right?
Well,
I mean, for instance, I mean, I learned this later. There's a riff, I think it is Pissing Territories on Nevermind, which is nicked off a Sick of It All album, song. So, I mean, and you found out things later, like Nirvana once opened up for DOA.
Oh, of course.
And of course, Joey Shithead's now a mayor in Canada, isn't he?
Yeah, and we have to distinguish the Canadian DOA, because there's another band called DOA that has the copyright in the US. Joey Shithead went into politics. So did Chris Novoselic. Since we're talking Nirvana.
Oh God, yeah, he's been talking to that Fonzie lookalike from Reason. I forgot what his name is. He does remind me of, if you ever listen, he's the main editor at Reason, which is that libertarian bollocks.
Yes.
He always reminds me of Fonzie. He does look like a 50s greaser. He's always like a leather jacket and he's got greasy hair,
I can't all I remember is Why People Believe Stupid Things was one of his books, and I can't remember past that.
Anyways,
my brain oh no, wait, that's not him. That's the other guy.
Well, I know, but Chris Novacek endorsed Ron Paul.
Yeah, it's
all right. Well, we're gonna have to get to my relationship with Ron Paul in a minute, but
let's get there. But I want to because so much of my identity is tied up in punk. It was.
Do you know the biggest shock of someone coming out as trans for me was Mina from Life of Agony.
Really?
Yeah, because Life of Agony were a hardcore band, and hardcore's like, it really is. That's all over macho bollocks, isn't it?
Well, Jane County on my end, obviously.
Yeah,
I got to tell you something really stupid.
Go on.
Because we're here and we're talking punk. I was a fan of a casual fan of Against Me, and
They're not
I,
punk.
I
They're lame.
yeah, but again, casual fan. There you go.
Yeah.
And I heard one, and it had been a couple of years since they'd done an album, and I knew that the lead singer was called Laura Jane Grace now, but I didn't know that it was a transition thing. I just thought they'd replace the lead singer. So I heard one song off of it called "Unconditional Love," which was a great song. Sorry, it just says, and I covered it because me and my partner at the time covered it, and but when I heard it, my first thing was, well, the new lead singer really fits in well with uh, sounds a lot like the old lead singer. I think probably. It was not until 2 years later that I found out that anything about what had happened. And Laura Jane played an acoustic show on that same stage maybe a week or two later after then me and my partner had covered it. And I didn't know anything about that either. So so stupid me, I really wasn't paying attention to a lot of the uh, personnel in punk, and I've changed that a lot now because
Yeah.
but there's my hi, I'm not really here.
I was never a big fan of Jane County. Granted, she did write one of the greatest rock lyrics of all time. You know, if you ain't gonna fuck me, then fuck off. But to be honest, Jane County sort
Yes.
of came from the sort of world of drag. I mean, she was an Andy Warhol superstar.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would also recommend her autobiography because of all trans autobiographies I've read, she really has lived a life. You know, she's had relationships with Rock Hudson, Freddie Mercury, and she's still alive. Um, yeah,
And
yeah.
was it
I know someone's going to now complain, oh, that's an anti-AIDS joke. No, it's just the fact that she survived.
it's part of our lives. It's
Yeah.
when AIDS came around. Um the didn't she oh no, it wasn't Jane who had the affair with Ray Davies. Fuck, I can't remember her name.
Oh,
Um
Amanda. It might be Amanda. No, Amanda Lear went out with Salvador Dali.
yeah,
Um,
and
did you ever hear Rick Rakeman's story about meeting Salvador Dali?
no.
Yes, we're playing a gig in some giant marquee in Spain, and this old bloke with a weird moustache got up and he was like dancing with his cane. And Rick Wakeman just went over and pushed him off the stage. He didn't realise it was Salvador Dali. I mean, I don't like Yes, but I think that yeah, that that story's quite funny.
Yeah, but remember Rick Wakeman wrote the piano parts for Life on Mars. So
Um,
anything else he does in his entire life, he can be forgiven for just having done that one thing.
it's a colorful affair with the girl with the males. I was listening to that this morning, actually. Um,
See,
yeah.
and
Um,
yeah, sorry, we got really tangential there, but it's fine because I love talking about music, and no one ever asked me. So
well, as I was saying, no, I think the whole punk attitude is important to me, politically, because it was like anti-establishment. You know, you have all these fucking politicians go, waffle, waffle, waffle. And I go, cut to the bullshit, will you? Will you just say what you fucking mean?
do
You know, and
do
that is very punk rock. You know, punks were always like, just say what you mean.
the last show I played before the lockdown was Punks for Planned Parenthood.
Hmm. And I mean,
Um,
and I also remember there's a
so
legendary performance by L7, and
yeah,
this is where the trans and the punk thing meet. Legendary performance by L7 on the British TV program The Word. It's the one where Jennifer Finch pulls down her trousers at the end.
Oh yes, I've
Yeah,
seen
they were doing pretend we are dead. She basically said she took a load of Mandrex before, so she was off her fucking head, you know.
the
And then they proceeded to smash up the stage, and
well,
I just thought,
top of the pops. You didn't really have to be sober or do anything to be to be on
yeah,
stage. As much as he's a public asshole now, you you know who just carried the flowers on stage and pretended to sing into them. Uh,
oh yeah, Morrissey. Well, no, actually,
that's why I just who'd him.
well, when they went on Top of the Pops, right? They were asked to mime, right?
Yeah,
And there's a very famous clip of All About Eve. They were singing their song, and suddenly the tape loop got stuck. Um, actually the person who took the piss out of that the best was Rod Stewart.
really.
When he did Maggie May, and funny enough, John, do you know John Peel is?
Of course, I know who John Peel is.
Yeah, he played mandolin on it, right? So he's just the black mandolin, and basically Rod and Ronnie, they were probably drunk as anything. Basically, started playing football in the middle of the song rather than mime.
That I've got to look that up because that sounds like that's my thing.
Trash Theory has done a whole video about artists taking the piss out of miming on Top of the Pops.
I will look because I like Trash Theory and I don't know how I've missed it.
Yeah, and I'd also recommend Trash Theory's Punk before it was punk. You know how punk became punk.
Yes, I have watched. I have absolutely watched that. I second your recommendation totally. I got a lot. I played. Uh, I'm so frustrated right now. But um, um, my friend asked me if I know how to yodel, and I don't know where that came from. And I said, "Yeah, I learned it from a proto-punk song by a Boston band called the Fools." And she's like, "What?" I said, "Yes, I know how to yodel. This is why I can jump octaves. Like I learned how to jump octaves by learning to yodel from a punk rock song." And she's like, "What?" So this is a song that exists. Anybody who's out there, look for a song called "Night Out" by the Fools. It's a really it doesn't hold up as much as I'd wish it did, but I played it for my kid yesterday. I said just look it up on YouTube, and my kid loved it. So
Yeah. So as I was saying, I saw I saw it live, the performance by L7.
oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And
It's your interview. I'm starting to barge in.
and I wanted to be them. Else, people have often asked me, "Oh, you're not very feminine." I go, "Well, let me think of my feminine heroes." Ellen Ripley from Aliens, Sarah
Yeah.
Connor from Judgment Day, and L7. You know, so that sort of links the sort of punk with the sort of trans. And if you were wanting to know how
Yeah.
I found out I was trans, I was watching the New Adventures of Wonder Woman when I was about 4. Remember that with
Yes.
Linda Carter?
Yeah. I've watched it again recently.
Who,
So.
who the last time I saw hasn't aged. Gosh, she still looks the same.
She looked great on Supergirl. So.
Yeah.
Which has a trans person on it, so we wrap around. Yes, go.
So you remember this twirl she used to do to turn into Wonder Woman?
God, yes.
Right, in
Spinning.
the playground the day afterwards, I tried that, and I was really disappointed I didn't turn into a woman. That was it. That's how I knew. When I was 4, I didn't tell anyone until I was 11, and I have to say, trans youth do not know how lucky they are now that people take them seriously. Because I remember telling a social worker when I was 11 that I was a woman, and she laughed at me.
I had
They just thought I was disturbed.
I had a gynomastia just before puberty, or just as puberty hit. So I had really big tits, and since I keep diaries, I and have gone back over my time then because I wanted to find, did I really know when I was a kid? There is a line that makes me choke up every time I relay it, which is, I wrote down, my body is trying to fix itself, which, yeah, I knew.
Yeah. Also around the sort of time of L7, I discovered a certain Bill Hicks. Some
Oh
people
yeah,
in America will not know who Bill Hicks was.
yeah.
Sadly, he died at a very young age. He was 32 when he died. He was a stand-up comic. In fact, he packed out theaters here, whereas in America, I think he could barely get a room full of people. Though he did do a few HBO specials.
Yeah.
But he was a bit more than a stand-up. He I mean, he started off as a stand-up, but then I know that he had problems with alcoholism, and basically the crowds, the audiences, just the comedy clubs he was going to would just laugh at him being drunk, and he had some sort of moment of clarity. There is a film about his life which is worth seeing. And at that moment, he sort of went off to New York, sort of wrote a whole new act, and was basically came up with some of the most observant comedy you will ever hear. It's brilliant
I think
about the hypocrisy there is in this world.
I
Um,
think his death to, you can take a almost straight line, and I suppose Carlin intersects here and there, but a straight line from Mort Saul to Bill Hicks to Doug Stanhope.
I would say George Carlin as well.
Well, yeah, that's why I say George
Oh,
Carlin
flooding
intersects
here.
through all of that, but
Yeah.
but Mort,
Um,
yeah, I love Mort Saul too, or loved Mort Saul.
I mean, Bill Hicks's sort of comedy is. Have you noticed how creationists look really unevolved? Yeah,
Yeah,
you have to think about that one. But
yeah.
the other one is I was at a Waffle House, and
They
a
have
waitress.
those there.
No, he was doing his routine.
Because I know the joke. I'm like, you were in a Waffle House. I thought, yeah,
No,
okay.
that's I'm doing Bill. I'm doing Bill.
I
Right. So
love I love this joke. So I'm sorry I
yeah,
stepped on it.
yeah. So Bill was in a Waffle House, and the waitress comes up to him and goes, "What are you reading?" No, sorry. Why are you reading? And Bill sort of like thought, "Why is she asking me why am I reading? She's not asking me what I'm reading. She's asking me why am I reading." Yeah. Well, so I don't end up as a waitress in a Waffle House. Um.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I can't tell the fucking. You've destroyed. Fucking
I'm
fucked this
so
up.
sorry. I'm so sorry. It's a good joke.
Just go and check it out. I mean, the other one is the one about. He says like people say drugs haven't done any good. Um. Well, if you think that, go home and burn your record collection because the musicians who made that music were real high on drugs.
I think just because it reminded me, and because nobody knows this stupid little piece of trivia. Um, Beatles trivia is all over the place, but nobody knows this particular. The only song they directly recorded about drugs was "Got to Get You Into My Life," which is like the poppiest song, and it's all about marijuana. So
No, well, that's not strictly
it's
true.
the only one they wrote directly about drugs.
Well, I would say John Lennon wrote "I Am the Walrus" when he was stoned out of his fucking
Oh,
head.
no. They did a lot stoned, but there's only one song directly about drugs, and Paul McCartney just says, and the one thing when I'd call John near the end that we would laugh and laugh about is that one little thing, because everybody said all these other songs were about drugs that were kind of innocuous, and The one song was "Got to Get You Into My Life." Do, 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 do.
So, well, I'm a Bill Hicks guy. So the funniest routine is about Waco. Um,
Okay.
because he was so bang on. He was in Australia when the Waco tobacco happened, and Aussies were coming up to him going, "Well, this David Koresh is a bit weird, isn't he?" And Bill says, "Well, let me think about this. Frustrated rock musician with a messianic complex, armed to the teeth and fucking everything in sight. I don't know how to tell you this, but that sounds like every one of my friends back in Austin, Texas." And the other one, and Bill was ahead of his time on this one. He said, so they said that they had to send tanks into the compound because there was child molestation going on. Well, if that's the case, why aren't they sending tanks into every Catholic church in North America?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I can't really do it justice, but go and check out what he said because it it was very, very funny, but it was also very true. That's what I would say. He basically went on stage and just told the world what he thought,
Yeah.
essentially. I mean,
That's the,
towards the end of his life, he was making this gag about he would rabbit on about politics and whatever else, and he said don't worry, there'll be dick jokes coming. Um,
the one of the
I think he once described himself as he said, "I'm Noam Chomsky, but with dick jokes."
well, there's reasons I draw a straight line from Mort Saul to him,
Yeah.
and not from Lenny Bruce because he was the modern Lenny Bruce. No, he wasn't. He was the modern Mort Saul. Mort Saul was better. So,
I always remember what the Lenny Bruce joke I always remember is that Lenny Bruce would go, he said, like, people who say fuck you. He said, really, that should be a compliment. It's actually unfuck you, which should be taken as abuse.
you think?
That's the one I remember. I do check out Dustin Hoffman. Was it it was called Lenny, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That is a really good film.
Yes, it is.
Um, uh, so yeah, Bill Hicks was sort of like, I just thought, wow, this is someone actually saying what I'm fucking thinking.
The only thing I didn't like about Bill Hicks was there was too much of a libertarian streak in him that kind of threw me. And as left and do your own thing, man. I was at Woodstock, just wanted to tell you that I lived in Woodstock for 3 years. Um, the
And do you know that Dennis Leary, who's still alive,
yeah,
plagiarized?
Dennis, yeah,
Yeah,
Dennis
it's
Leary.
essentially plagiarized
Just
everything Bill did.
yes, and unfortunately, he picked a lot of the parts that I don't like, which are kind of like. I like Dennis Leary, but I don't like Dennis Leary. It's a love-hate relationship. Um, you know. Well, who else is from Waco, of course, is Meatloaf. So
Yeah,
speaking of Messiah complex.
yeah. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. What? Go on a diet? Um,
Well, he did. He lost 200 pounds.
that was the joke at the time. I remember. Yeah.
He said,
I shouldn't talk. I'm a fat fuck myself.
as,
Uh,
as as am I, which is why you only ever see me from the shoulders up.
you're like what's his name from Heart? I don't know if you remember that, but
Oh yes,
basically, yeah, that they would only shoot the videos from the chest up of her.
oh, poor Ann Wilson. The I got everything I know about guitar from Nancy Wilson, so just so you
Barracuda.
know.
That is a
Oh,
great song.
which is about telling a record executive to
Go fuck off.
go fuck off.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's basically about sexism in the music industry.
Yeah.
So where was I? Yeah, yeah. So I got introduced to Bill Hicks, and not long afterwards, I got introduced to PJ O'Rourke. Um, Now I know what some people are going to say. PJ is a conservative libertarian. What's a radical lefty like me reading him? Well,
He's funny.
he's funny. Yeah, he is funny. That's the problem with PJ. He might be a conservative, but he's actually funny. And I started to sort of discover gonzo journalism. Hunter S. Thompson, um, best known for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, though that is not his best book. On the Fear and Loathing on the Election Trail, 72 is his best book, and probably one of the best books written about politics.
He didn't write the one about Hell's Angels, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah, he did.
Okay, the Hell's Angels one I liked. Um, uh, Las Vegas. Fuck that book. But um, I'm kind of I'm kind of pricky that way. Uh, I don't know what it is about Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that I hated, but I hated it.
Anyway, so we're around about the mid 90s here, and this was the time of New Labour, Tony Blair,
Yeah,
and I did not like New Labour. I did not like Tony Blair, um, and I didn't like myself because I, I was still living as male. I was very unhappy in my own skin.
yeah.
I was also an habitual pothead. I still am,
Well,
and
yeah.
proud of it. And suddenly, one night, I was listening to the radio, and I heard a guy on from the Libertarian Alliance, and he said, "Oh, I believe all drugs should be legalized." And I went, "Yes!" That's what I wanted to hear. Because you had all, I mean, to explain to people in America, there's three major political parties. Well, there used to be three major political parties, as I will explain. There's the
Right.
conservatives, who are kind of like liberal Republicans, right? Then you have the liberal Democrats, who are sort of like the Democrats, and then you have Labour, who are like, well, supposedly like meant to be like Bernie Sanders, under Tony Blair, and now under Keir Starmer, they're sort of pussy whipped fucking centrists.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm not happy with the new leadership. Anyways,
Just a smidge.
so now the Liberal Democrats were the only sort of party that said we would look into possibly legalizing marijuana. They would have a royal commission on it. I just wanted a politician to say, we're going to legalize marijuana. That's all. And to hear someone on the radio, who was political, say, "Oh, all drugs should be legalized," I just went, "Yes, libertarianism," right?
Right.
And so, why have you just sent me a link?
It's a song. Listen to
Oh,
it. I'll put it. I'm actually going to put it in the description of this thing. It's a
all
song
right.
like
I am aware of the time, and I'm aware of your hard, hard, hard drive space. I'm trying to hurry up here. Um,
it's. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good for another 15 to 20 minutes. I'll be
I
fine.
don't think we're going to get through this in 15 to 20 minutes, but I'll try. Anyways,
We've got a third. We can always. A third is always possible. I've been talking a lot, and I apologize, but I'm kind of like, you're talking so much of my language, and I never get to talk it.
all
It's
right,
one of those. One
fair
of the
enough.
reasons I like doing the thing. I liked doing the thing with you on the politics show.
Yeah.
So
So, anyways, I started to learn about libertarianism, John Stuart Mill, you know, uh, further back, Adam Smith and stuff like that. And it started to really interest me because I didn't know at the time I was autistic, but libertarianism appeals to people who are autistic because it's consequential logic.
yeah,
It's basically like, oh, you don't need a welfare state because if there wasn't a welfare state, then people would step in and help poor people. Now, obviously, I know that's bullshit now,
yeah,
but I was very young. I had a lot of problems, and it seemed to be the thing for me, right? And I got further and further into libertarianism. Um, at the same time, I did try to transition when I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
However,
Same.
I accidentally, well, I didn't accidentally, yet again, I say, around about the time I tried to transition, I also finally got online properly. I got my first PC, and stuff. So, I thought, well, I'm going to check out some trans groups, which are out there. The old bulletin boards and discussion forums you would have around. And unfortunately, I came across a trans woman who I really wish I'd never met.
Yes, do not say the name.
No, I won't say their name.
Thank you.
They were a really nasty true scum piece of work. In some ways, to me, they're the original true scum. They would essentially go around pissing on the way other trans women looked to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is, they weren't the only one sort of doing this. There were a lot of transsexuals who were, you got to do this, this, and this, and if you don't do this, this, and this in the way we tell you, then you're not a true trans woman or a true transsexual, as it was then. And I could, for instance, like hair removal. You must get hair removal. Well, I couldn't afford it, right? Yeah. I still can't afford it, right? And well, you're not prepared to make the sacrifices needed to be a true trans woman. And I got so fucking fed up with this that I decided, fuck it, I can't transition. My confidence just went, right? And so I sort of, what I did was I couldn't go fully back in the closet. So I basically did this thing, meaning there was this thing called men's fashion rights or fashion freedom. Basically it's men in skirts.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
And it turned out actually funny. A lot of these guys who do this sort of skirts for men stuff are actual transsexuals, but because they're married, right? Yeah. They can't transition on whatever else. So this is sort of a way of sort of dealing with their gender dysphoria. In fact, some of them were actually on a very low dose of hormones. This is something I discovered, during this time.
Sure.
But they weren't like transvestites. You see, the thing is, they trying to. I mean, I know that word transvestite isn't.
That's okay. Transsexual isn't used anymore either. So let's just go and worry about it later.
So. Sorry, I'm just checking the time.
No, we're fine. Sorry, we're fine.
Sorry.
We're fine.
Anyways, sorry. They weren't transvestites. They weren't looking to like dress up in mini skirts and high heels and wear blonde wigs. They were sort of more earnest, right? And a bit like me, one thing that I remember Caroline Cossie always described me as was for real. That's how she would describe me. I'm for real, right? I'm raw, right? And these people were sort of like that as well. But I kept some contact with the trans community, and I remember there was a trans woman on our bulletin boards who I sort of got to know, who lived in Tennessee, and she was a conservative libertarian. And to my utter surprise, a mega New Model Army fan. For those who don't know, New Model Army are a very cult punk band.
Not so cult to me, but that. You already knew that.
Yeah. Essentially, they've had problems, shall we say, getting work visas in the United States.
Yeah.
Because they wrote a song called 51st State, which slagged the US off. You could go and check it out on YouTube, right?
Yes,
And
please.
this is a conservative libertarian, right? And she likes New World Army. And I said, well, how do you like New World Army? She said, well, when I was at college, they got played on college radio a lot. So she asked me to burn her a disc and everything. So we were friends. And one day she said, Ron Paul's running for president. And I had the name. I'd seen him name mentioned on libertarian sites, but I was very distrustful of politicians who called themselves libertarian because often you would find that they weren't so they were like economic libertarians, as in they wanted to cut tax, but they weren't keen on decriminalizing or legalizing drugs, right?
Open borders, or
Yeah,
anything that makes sense with the philosophy.
yeah. So she said you should go and check him out. So I I did, and yep, he supported the legalization of drugs. And I always remember Steve Stives in the video he did about Ron Paul. He was very clever because he sort of said, so do you think that the youth of America were interested in Ron Paul because they were interested in a secure financial future of balanced budgets and living within our means, or because he wanted to legalize pot? Well, yeah, it was definitely because he wanted to legalize pot for me, right? And I
Sure.
got on board. Now through that, I discovered the Free State Project up in New Hampshire, and I started to get to know those guys, right? Particularly a guy called Gardner Goldsmith, who's sadly we no longer speak. The trouble with Gardner is I know you're going to say don't mention names, but this is actually on record.
I Yeah, I'm not. I wasn't pausing you because not only do I know who Gardner Goldsmith is because he was a public figure, but I don't think he is anymore. But
Well, I haven't heard from him for years, and from what I've heard, yeah, he isn't so much of a public figure now. Um, but I remember I heard him on a radio uh, program, and he made a mega reference to Doctor Who. I forgot what it was, and he also kept making references to various punk bands. And I thought, oh no, I like punk rock, I like Doctor Who. Oh God, and he's a libertarian. Check, check, check. I've got to I've got to start corresponding with this guy.
yeah,
Yeah, and so I got really involved with those guys, and it did come to a stage where I packed a bag and I was going to go to New Hampshire. That was it. Bye bye, Britain. I was well into the libertarian cult.
hmm.
Now, someone stopped me, and I'm glad they stopped me because I had a moment to think. My life was really shit. I'd been doing this sort of men in dresses thing for fucking 7 years, and it was just closing doors. Yes, one of the reasons I was doing it was we're going to have a fashion revolution, and we're going to get the end of the clothing apartheid and all that bullshit. I mean, it is bullshit. Yeah, no one gave a shit. Yeah, the only people who gave a shit were the people who abused you because they could care enough to abuse you.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. No one
Uh,
should, no man should be abused for wearing a skirt. Can I just add that? And I'm not talking about Scots and kilts. I'm talking about, the whole uni kilt thing, there's a shop in America, you can get them. Anyways, um, I suddenly realized that one of the things I was doing, and by this point I'd been diagnosed with autism. So I knew that, yeah, libertarianism appealed to me in a certain way because it was all very logical and stuff. But then then I realized the world isn't very logical, right?
right.
Uh,
And plus one of the things about um, the they used to call it Asperger's, and I kind of it's not that I want to make the distinction. It's just it's descriptive, so you know what you're getting there. Um, um, the is we take people very much at face value. Um, and that's um, not always the safest move.
Yeah. So I realized that what I was doing with libertarianism's a cult, right? And people who get seriously into libertarianism, it really sort of it takes over your life, right? Um, and I realized what I was doing was I was replacing libertarianism as a means of not dealing with gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Weirdly, um, it was so because it filled up my life. I didn't have to think about gender dysphoria, but gender dysphoria for me was cyclical. I could not think about it for weeks, and then it would really hit me really badly, right?
Yeah.
So it started to hit me a lot more often, and I realized I've got to do something about this. I really do. So I made the decision, give up the men in dresses thing, go back to just being an ordinary guy. If in 6 months um, gender dysphoria is still bothering you, you're going to have to transition. Now, this is the beginning of 2010. So we're post the financial crisis. There's a general election here. The Tories, well, they don't win the general election, but they are able to form a government. Austerity is on the cards. It was like a rabbit in the headlights. You know, you'd
Yeah.
think me as a libertarian, oh, small government, that sounds really good. No, because I knew that as a disabled person who receives some government assistance, that ain't going to be good, right? I think a lot of libertarians sort of live in this fantasy land because they get to use free roads, right? If they lived in an anarcho-capitalist society, they would fucking hate it because they would be charged for every fucking road they go down, right? So,
I have a very simple uh, drawing I do whenever somebody does the every paying for roads or toll roads and the libertarian thing. I draw them a picture and I show how it's a sorry. Um, you know what? I'll have it ready for Thursday when we record. Uh,
so now at the same time as this, I'd crossed um, on the interwebs. I'd sort of crossed paths with somebody called Tempest Crane, who's a trans musician, as you know.
yeah, yeah,
She was the first person I knew who was preaching the whole non-binary stuff, right? Um, and I didn't tell her first of all I was trans. I think on the third time I spoke to her, I did, and immediately she started to say, "You've got to get out. You've got to get out. You're not. I can tell you're not happy. You know." And she nagged me for 2 years, right? Now she wasn't the person who actually got me out of the closet, but she was the person who did the most to encourage me. I would say the person who actually sort of the way I sort of came out was Bank Holiday Monday, August Bank Holiday Monday, 2010. My friend Susie, who was one of the few trans people I'd sort of kept in contact with, came round, gave me 2 boxes of hormones, and said, "Get on with it." And I did, and I never looked back.
did you well, I had a lot of the about fucking time when I came out, which I'm assuming is part of your experience too.
Yeah, there were people who did say that to me. Yeah.
Uh, and I actually don't mind it. It's like, oh, people knew stuff about me that I don't really have to explain now. Okay,
And
cool.
And because there had been a change of government, and because, funny enough, one thing, as you know, hormones make you more empathetic. I just, you know, libertarianism, it wasn't quite. I pulled away from it. It was still there, and I was still having contact with a lot of people in New Hampshire. It was actually Natasha Kennedy, who you can look up, Natasha with a C. There is one video I know of her on YouTube. Actually,
Okay.
she's a lecturer at Goldsmiths. Now, she became sort of a mentor for a while. Unfortunately, we don't no longer talk. She was basically the one who eventually deprogrammed me completely from libertarianism. Um,
Well, this is
it,
good.
you know, and I will always thank her for that because she put me back to where I was. You know, essentially, what I would say to anybody is, if you know you have gender dysphoria, sort it fucking out. You know, don't listen to any other cunt. Do it.
I've told you my okay. Oh, somebody just picked the last thread in my sweater. My the costume I have on is unraveled, um, which bizarrely happened from a stranger on Twitter who, you know, and it was a pick of the last thread, and it's always a strange thing.
Well, I mean,
I don't.
I essentially, I wasted. I could have probably transitioned back in the 90s. Thinking about it, because the other problem with the true scummers is that they always try to make it sound like harder than it actually is. It's not easy, right? But they seem to they think you should be the perfect picture of stereotypical femininity.
When
No, no, you're never going to be that. You
No, of
won't.
course not. The My mom's friend, when my mom first visited me afterwards, um, my mom's friend kept using he, and I said, please use she, and my mom's friend said, uh, I'll start calling you she after you're finished with the process. And I said, I just came out to you. That's the process.
Yeah, it's really weird that I mean, the first time I spoke to Gardner after I transitioned, he kept he kept saying Sophia and then my dead name. Yeah, as if he thought I wasn't going to do it. Yeah, it was, and it was like he didn't speak to me for about 18 months after I transitioned. He seriously didn't. Yeah, and there were little things like that. I mean, I was talking to a libertarian trans woman last night, and
Yeah.
I said to her, well, my experience of libertarians and trans is libertarians tend to favor defending transphobes on free speech grounds rather than say than defend trans women from exercising their individual liberty by being themselves.
Well,
That's always been the problem with libertarianism and trans, as far as
well,
I'm concerned.
libertarianism at its core does not take in um, conflict of rights, um, which again,
Well, no,
I have a really great thing I draw every time, and it's like, but, and there's no answer to it. And maybe, hopefully, maybe somebody, since we're doing the politics on your channel, maybe somebody will have an answer to it. And I would love to hear one because I have yet to. We're wrapping soon. I Kim is your fiance's name, right?
yeah,
Or,
that's her screen name. Yeah,
yeah, I thought it was something else, but I'll go with her screen name. So I was right; it is something else. I know
yeah.
what the other one is. All right. Well, tell Kim that I give her my love, and I give you my love, of course, um, because you've become important to me over this past what 6 8 months. Um, the and and now I'm going to do the performative YouTube thing, which is going to come across as performative, but it kind of isn't. But not kind of isn't. It really isn't. Um, and I've come to love all you people out there. We're recording this on Tuesday. It's going out on Thursday. This is going to be an extra one during the week. Unfortunately, I won't be able to premiere it, but it's going out, so people will see it. Hopefully, um, as we were talking, I got another someone else subscribed to the channel, so I'll take those little bits of crumbs. The But for the people out there, the YouTube prayer, of course. If you like what you see, please consider giving a like. I have a Patreon, and if that's too much commitment for you, because we all know trans people are afraid of commitment. I'm joking right there. Please do not at me. Um, we overcommit sometimes. Um, and that's a joke too. Well, no, it isn't. Uh, if Patreon is too much of a commitment, I've got a PayPal, and um, I wouldn't have this lovely mic if somebody didn't anonymously PayPal me the money for it. Um, and I have a Ko-fi account, which I don't think is on. I don't think it's on my screen yet, but it'll be down in the description. Um, and for Sophia, thank you. As always,
No problem.
you know. And for everybody, including Sophia and including Kim, uh, will uh, your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter. And
Thank you.
thank you. Um, I mean that I totally mean that to you too. Believe me. Um, that I suppose that's it. That's my outro, and I suppose I hit the button now. I shall hit the button, Frank. Um,